Today is Saturday, January 22nd. It is 6:30 in the morning.
I've been up an hour. I had to take Arlo out.
I just woke up. Sorry.
I woke him up.
Yeah. Today's an exciting day. I don't know how to say it. Jessica about to take a pregnancy test.
I am. And I'm very nervous.
Here we go.
Hey everybody, my name is Ren,
And I'm Jess.
and we are the Gilliards.
So for the past 3 years, we have been on a journey, to say the least, and we have felt so led to share that journey with hopefully someone that would be encouraged. And we're calling that journey Hills and Valleys, which is our journey to starting our family.
So we have been married for 5 years, going on 6 years, and it has been amazing. You know, before we got married, when we were dating, we would talk about our family, but even individually, like before we even started dating, like we both had dreams of having a big family. We both wanted a big family. I come from a smaller family. I just have a younger brother, and like, man, it'd been cool if there was more of us. So I just love like the big family feel. And so it's something that we both desired is to just have a family, but also like it'd be cool to have like a big family.
Yeah, I remember even growing up, and I was that girl who dreamed about my kids more than I dreamed about my husband. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
I literally remember having a conversation with my mom when I was very young. She was washing my hair, and we were just talking about the future. And I just remember telling her that I didn't want to get married. She was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yep." And I remember her even asking me, "Well, do you want kids?" And I was like, "Yes, I want a big family. Like, I want at least 5. And she was like, "Well, how's that gonna work?" And I remember my response to her was, "Well, I guess I'll just adopt," which is so funny to me because that wasn't like a norm or anything. But I've always had that basketball team in my head of 5 kids.
Starting 5.
So I remember the conversation we had. It was in Texas. We went on a trip out of town with some friends, and we were just at the point where we liked each other, and we're like investigating, is this what it's gonna be? And we were asking intentional questions, and we were talking about how many kids. And I remember telling Ren, "Oh, I want 5." And he was like, "Well, really?"
It's a lot of them.
I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "I am so down."
But can we tell him you wanted 5 boys?
Yeah. I have always, yeah. I didn't want any girls. I just wanted my basketball team, and I wanted all of them to go to the NBA and take care of. No, just
I'm okay with it. At least one of them.
At least one of them go to the NBA. And so it was just so cool. I remember us getting to know each other and having that in common, and of course being excited about it, but definitely wasn't in a rush, to be quite honest. I remember when things got very serious in our relationship, we got married, and you know how society is. Like when you're dating, they're like, "When are you gonna get married?" And when you're married,
when you gonna have
when you
kids,
gonna have them babies. And from what I hear, it's like they say when you had the babies, they're like, "When the next one coming?" And so I do remember the questions. Like literally, I have an engagement ring, and everybody's, "When y'all having kids?" And I'm like, "Can we get married first?"
Yeah, it's crazy.
And just I remember as we would talk about it, neither one of us was in a rush, even though we knew we wanted a big family.
I think the big thing was, of course, like we dated and we knew each other, but I think, of course, like being married is like a totally different thing.
Completely.
And it amplifies a lot of things. It amplifies the good things, it amplifies the bad things.
Come on, somebody.
So we wanted to just take some time just to continue to just be with one another, just us. Not that it almost sounds selfish, but it's not. I think it's important that you do, because you're going from one season to another, and you don't want to make like a lot of drastic changes.
100%.
Just take your time. There's no rush.
Yes, and just even for me personally, seasons have always been a big deal to me. Even down to my season of singleness, I was never in a rush because I felt like if you are in a season, God has so much that He is unfolding, and when you try to go into the next season without in a way, wringing out the towel of everything you could get in that next season. You're not as efficient. You're not as fruitful. And so I feel like when I look back at my singleness, I was living my best life. But I wanted to feel that way with this new season of being married. I wanted to feel like we got everything we could out of the season of marriage. So we would go into the season of parenthood full of joy with no regrets and ready to take it on.
So we definitely just enjoyed just the season that we were in. We traveled, we did everything. We just enjoyed one another. And it was probably around year 2 when we decided like, hey, we should start trying, and it just kind of casually came up in conversation.
It was me.
It was her. And so it just came up, and then just after just talking over, it was kind of like
conversations.
It wasn't like the first one. It was just one conversation. I don't know. Okay.
It probably was just one.
Yeah.
It felt very natural.
Yeah.
Along the lines of like, not like let's hit like strong into it, but more so like why not? Let's just stop preventing and just see what happens, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very nonchalantly. And even if I can recall the feelings I had, I was excited. I'm gonna just be honest, like, I imagine for most girls, like, it's easy for us to just go. And my mind was immediately thinking about, like, how are you gonna tell people you're pregnant? Thinking about baby showers, thinking about registering for gifts, thinking about nurseries, thinking about gender reveals, like, which is so funny to me now, because it's like the last thing I think about. But it was a very, which I think those things are great, but it's so much more to it. But in that initial feeling, I was very excited, and I will not lie, there was a slight part of me that was slightly nervous. And it's not like I even have a history of knowing people who might have struggled, but there was something in me that was almost like a what if in the back of my head of like, well, what if something happens? Or what if this doesn't happen the way we think it's going to happen?
Something didn't happen, like that letdown. It hurts.
Yeah, which I think is so interesting because most couples I talk to, they are not even thinking like that initially. They just think it'll happen. But for some reason, I already had that slight fear. I'm not quite sure where that came from, but that was definitely there. And I could definitely tell that is kind of how we approached it.
Definitely.
Like, I researched and I found out that it usually takes women on average 3 to 6 months to get pregnant. And so even that was something like I held on to as a safety net of like, just if it doesn't happen month 1, that's normal.
Month 2.
If it doesn't happen month 2, it's normal. Like I was telling myself, like, don't worry, because it's normal. Whatever you face in this is gonna be normal. And even though that should have been there to make me not worry, I'll be honest, month after month, my worry and my fear grew, to be quite honest. And I think it's because, like, initially it's one thing if the fear is there and there's no evidence of that fear being true. Yeah. But I almost felt like month after month, I was gaining evidence. Every time my cycle would come, it would feel like, you see. And of course, I know, like, between my flesh and the enemy, like, they were wreaking havoc. And before I knew it, like, that initial excitement and that caused me to be secretive to surprise people became actually like fear, and it made me isolate. Yeah. Not to mention, this is 2020, you guys.
COVID year,
It's COVID, so we are like, high into the pandemic. We are in our homes. There's no community. We obviously are very involved in our church. We're pastors. So, we're not seeing people. And so the normal, tendency of me to live in community and share the things that the enemy was attacking me with, that wasn't even an option at that point. And so that secrecy filled with excitement turned into fear, which turned into isolation, which I'm gonna be honest, it turned into shame.
For me, it was just very it was very difficult. And of course, it still is, but just knowing how to navigate things, because we both are pretty optimistic people and are easily can see the glass half full. And so in the first couple months, like just full of faith, full of joy, just knowing like, oh, it's gonna happen. But when there's certain results that happen that don't line up with what you expected, it can kind of just change how you think about things. And for me, it had like a slight change, but I'm still pretty optimistic. But you can kind of just see it almost in a way like kind of wearing and tearing on Jess, to where it was just like this slow kind of progression where it's almost like a happy face, and it slowly kind of starts going here. It kind of just mellows out, and you can just see it. You can see like it was almost the anticipation of what is this pregnancy test gonna say, and it went from us almost being excited to do it to us just like, well, here we go, kind of almost expecting it.
Which he's being very generous, because let me give you the real version of what he just said. He was full of faith. And when I mean full of faith, this man was consistent. And I was deteriorating fastly, aggressively. It's like it came out of nowhere. I feel like it was like month 4, because like they said 3 months to 6 months. So as soon as we got to month 4, I was like, we're infertile. Yeah. And she was ready to diagnose. I'm like, hold on. And honestly, I know that sounds like so dramatic, but it's so real. It is so real. And I feel like even worldly wise, you don't even you can't diagnose infertility based off of just the standards in medical science until a year of trying. But it's so interesting that my spirit was so discouraged that I did diagnose myself, which we'll preach. How many times do we diagnose ourselves before that is what God has said? Yeah. And I definitely feel like even in the natural, I was not diagnosed with infertility, but in my soul, in my heart, I was. And that was, I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but it was a conversation that we had at our little kitchen table. We used to have this little white kitchen table, and we were sitting there, and I remember you just being like, well, just think about it. You're thinking there really is a problem, but have we really even seriously tried? Do you remember that conversation? Because again, our approach was very nonchalant, and so we were like, we'll see, but we weren't tracking anything, we weren't scheduling anything. And he was like, what's stopping us from trying? And I remember just crying, and I was like, I'm scared, because right now that's the only thing I'm holding on to say that maybe nothing's wrong. It's because we're not trying, and that's why it doesn't happen. But I was so afraid that if we really did try, and we got into the tracking and got into the body temperatures and all the things, because it's a whole nother world, you guys. Number one, I thought I was gonna get lost in that, into where it was gonna literally control me. And then also I was afraid that I was gonna find out that everything that I thought was true was actually true.
And so with that, it was in a way kind of hard to be full of faith, because it's almost like it can come off as, I don't know if this makes sense, but you having faith, it can look like you're belittling what another person is feeling.
That's the whole thing
sometimes, because you could be like, oh, smiling, happy, everything's gonna be good, and it's not necessarily like I'm just not paying attention to what's in front of us, but just being full of faith, it can come off as you don't care about what's going on, and you're not that she didn't feel that way. Talking to somebody out there, talking to the husbands out there.
That's exactly how I felt. Because you got to think about it. I'm having these conversations with him, and I'm pouring my heart out of, I'm gonna be honest, straight up grief and lament. I'm like, this is horrible, and where is God, and all of these things. I guess you could tell I'm a bit dramatic. And whenever he speaks his words that are full of faith, it feels like, number one, I was not validated, and number two, it makes me feel like you must not care as much as I do. And again, that's not fair for me to project that, but it was how I felt, but at the same time, it was how he felt. And so a lot of times people don't talk about the effects that these things have on your marriage, but not only navigating through a desire feeling like it's never gonna happen, but then navigating through where is God in all this, and then feeling like you're so alone, where, you know, being alone like physically because of 2020, but also like even when you're alone with other people, you'll notice like in marriage you always feel like you have a partner. And of course I knew he was my partner, he's my ride or die, but in this I felt alone, and that was really hard. So we did it. We were like, let's actually take a step of faith and let's try. Like, let's track, let's use the apps, let's schedule, let's do all the things, which, to be quite honest, still scared me because I was like, that's just a lot. But I think at this point we have been trying for, at least half a year. Yeah. And it was like, all right, like, let's be for real, we want this. And so around January of the next year, 2021, it was like a moment, which if you've tried before, you go through the back and forth every month of like, what are these symptoms? And you start paying attention to your body, and almost every month you think like, could this be? Mm-hmm. And between a series of the way my body was feeling and the way my prayers were going, to be honest, we start every year with the 21 days of praying and fasting. And of course, like, I knew what I was believing God for, obviously believing things beyond even just our family and things, but like for us and our family, we're believing that we would see a breakthrough in this area. And so it was insane, between the peace the Lord had given me, and then even just, to be quite honest, some things that were spoken over our life prophetically from other people. I was convinced that January I was pregnant. Mm-hmm. My cycle was a little late. It was like a day or two late, and I was convinced. Like, I was convinced, like, I am pregnant. Like, he just did it, and we believed, and we prayed, and we fasted.
Jessica about to take a pregnancy test.
I am, and I'm very nervous.
Here we go.
I'm taking quite a bit of pregnancy tests.
So I'm gonna walk out the bathroom, and then
I'm gonna walk out of the bathroom.
All right.
We're gonna walk into the bathroom together.
I see how you did. Okay. So here we go.
So of course, like, you know, taking the test, you pee on a stick is nothing glamorous. Of course, we leave the pregnancy test in the bathroom, and we walk out together into our bedroom, and we're just talking. And I just even remember some of our conversations of like, this is the moment, like everything is about to change. Like, this is it. Yeah, we're having these conversations on the bed, and just like filled with just the anticipation of what now, because we're pregnant. And of course, we walk into the bathroom together, and we look at the pregnancy test, and we were silent because it was obviously negative. And I've had negative pregnancy tests, I guess every month for 6 months, but
this one was different.
This one was different. My expectations were clearly not met. And I've taken pregnancy tests and immediately filled with the emotion. I've never taken pregnancy tests and immediately filled with numbness. And I was numb.
In moments like that, I feel like you're never necessarily prepared. There's no book that you could read, or just like a how-to manual on how to, I guess, in that moment, how to console a person, how to be with a person. And I know I was silent for a little bit, and I feel like every word that came out of my mouth, I won't say hesitant to say, but I just didn't know what to say. I had no idea, because I was right there with her. Like we both were at a place where we're full of faith, like already celebrating in advance, like just like what God had did, and it was just hard. And so there's the generic things that you could say, which I feel like in the situation, technically, the stuff you're not supposed to say, like, hey, it's gonna be okay, or hey, it's all right, maybe next month. What do you say? Maybe y'all can tell me. But like, didn't know.
I can tell you what not to say.
Did I say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
You didn't.
Okay.
But I've learned from this journey there are things that you shouldn't say.
Yeah, we've heard some stuff. Yeah.
No, he was very supportive though. I just remember, of course, his words being filled with just compassion. And I remember him saying, I don't know what to say, actually. And I remember you just apologizing and just saying you're so sorry. And again, I'm just like sitting there staring. And immediately, so I spent time with God in the morning. And so I was just like, I don't know what to say. So I went into my room. At this house, we both had our own little offices. And so that was, I say office, that was my prayer room, really. So I went in there, and for an hour straight, I stared. I didn't say anything to God. I didn't cry. I didn't pray. I just stared. And in the middle of me being there, I get a text because I was supposed to meet someone. I don't know if you remember this, but it was someone from our church, and they wanted to meet up with me, and it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I can pour out right now, or I can be honest and say, like, I don't got it right now. And it was like a decision. I was at a crossroad of like, you can let God in, or you can put this under the rug and you can just bury this hurt. And I decided, like, very intentionally to bury it. And so I got in my car and I said, yep, I'm on my way. And I met them and I poured out, even though my heart was crumbling. Like I was aching. But I was like, we don't have time for that. Also, I got asked to preach at a women's conference that year. And in my head, I just told myself, like, this is not, it doesn't matter more than these women at this conference. Obviously, God wants me at this conference. So I was like, you don't have time to deal with it. You just don't have time. Like, people matter. And it is so true that people matter. But I consciously knew that what I was doing was not okay. But I mean, I, again, was not living in any type of community concerning this. No one at this time knew of our struggle, which is, I mean, the number one mistake. Like, the devil preys on those who isolate themselves.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect recipe for the enemy to really, like, overcome and overwhelm me. And so I even remember going on this to this women's conference. I remember feeling like I heard the Lord, like, in every area of my life except the area that I shut him out. And in my mind, I was thinking, I'm not hearing him in that area because he's just not speaking to me. But the reality is, like, the only area I wasn't hearing from God was the area that I shut him out of. And so I was able to minister. I was able to pour out to other people because I had not shut him out of those areas. And what's interesting is I remember going to this conference, and I mean, having people come up to me specifically with fertility issues, of miscarriage and infertility, and even a little bit about my journey is a grief of loved ones. And there were people coming up to me who were ministered in the areas from me, but these are all areas that I was still bound in. And I remember leaving that conference saying, okay, it's time. And so I remember coming back, and that was the first part of, like, okay, God, like, my heart's broken. What do I do now? And I feel like there went a series of about 3 months where all my prayers were just tears. That's all my prayers were. But when I tell you, like, I experienced, like, a depth with the Lord, it was the most beautiful. I mean, almost to where you want to go back there. Like, there's times even now, even in my whole and healed self, that I'm like, there was something so beautiful about the brokenness and the intimacy that I felt with God in one of the hardest points of my life. And I felt like week after week, I would come to him with my pain, but I was met with intimacy. That's the only way I can explain it, because in the midst of those prayers, it's not like the desire went away. And I think there's so many people who want contentment, and they think contentment means that I don't want anything anymore. No, there's things that you want and desire that God put in your heart. But none of those things are meant to satisfy us, which is the beauty of God, that He would allow us to have desires, but no matter what He puts in our heart, He knows that we can always be satisfied. And for the first time in about a year, I feel like I was eating the bread of life from Him, and I felt so full, even though I still desired a family.